and dream deep. Not sure what happened at 8 o'clock. I recorded my entire live and there was no recording. Don't know why. Um, Technology does some strange things these days, it seems. But never mind. Um, I'll do a practice run. There's two brief dreams that are featured this evening, but as I always say, brief dreams carry a lot of information. The dreams have the ability of compressing a lot of information in a few images. So don't be fooled when you think, oh, it was just a snippet of a dream. It's a lot more to it than you think. So, starting with the first dream, the dreamer was attending a judo workshop, which didn't have many people in it, and it seemed like the teacher, after the class was over, was teaching some technical judo, whatever that may mean. Now, the sensei or teacher came over to the dreamer and said, took him to a whiteboard and said, you need to learn this, and started drawing spirals of different sizes on this whiteboard. And then handed a marker to the dreamer and said, practice. You need to practice this. So, or rather, you need to draw this. So that was the end of dream one. Very short dreams. The second dream looks at, is about a party. The dreamer was with a small group of people. They were on their way to a party somewhere. And the only one who actually knew where the venue was the dreamer. And they found the venue. It's in a basement space. And there was a kerfuffle at the door because the hire agreement or the contract for the space was lost. A friend of the dreamer or a colleague of the dreamer's was supposed to have that contract and said he lost it. Now, the dreamer at that point was a bit concerned, a bit worried that the event would actually not take place, even though they'd paid for it, because the contract was lost. Nevertheless, something must have been worked out or resolved in some way, and the dreamer in the next instant, found himself at the beginnings of this party in a room called the Latin room, and the dream ends there. Now, as I said, short dreams can contain a lot of information because the unconscious mind will use plays on words, of images and techniques that will pack a lot of information into them that needs to be unpacked in order to understand the meaning of the dream. So let's see what we can unpack from these two snippets. Now, the first dream, the first thing that's the obvious feature is martial arts. Now, this dreamer is involved with martial arts and has his family involved with martial arts and has been doing martial arts for a number of years. So it's not entirely surprising that martial arts turns up in the dreams. Now, but to step back from that and to look at it in a slightly different way, I mean, think about martial arts, what that actually is. Martial arts, the art of war, is what that literally means, the art of war. So it makes me wonder whether this dream and the dreamer's perhaps interest, a waking interest in martial arts, is a kind of warrior's preparation for war of some kind, not necessarily a physical war, but some other kind of war. And the training is preparing or training for that. You could also look at martial arts as being a means of developing focus and discipline. I know it was for me when I did martial arts, and quite often that's something that features whatever style of martial arts. It requires dedication, discipline, and focus in order to perform well. But my question is, what does martial arts evoke for the dreamer? What does it mean to him other than to be an activity that he obviously enjoys and has done so for many years? But does that, um, what does the doing of martial arts, or what the presence of it in his life, what does that mean? Then we have the teacher, the sensei, who brings the dreamer to one side and says, you need to practice this, and sets him to um, copying the different size spirals that he's written on this whiteboard. Now, what were the spirals about? Were they representations of some kind of movements that the sensei wanted the dreamer to practice? What exactly were those spirals about? I mean, they were different sizes. Do they represent different styles of movement, or different types of movement, or the size of the space of the movement? What do those spirals represent exactly? It made me thinking of people's energy, the spirals of energy. We're all surrounded by electromagnetic energy and emit our own electromagnetic signature, which is why when certain people come into the room, you know it's them because you recognize their energy. So I wonder if those spirals were representing people's energy. And if that's the case, why was the dreamer required to practice that? What was that about? In any case, the sensei then gives the dreamer a marker to draw, to practice drawing these spirals. And my question about that was, or the thought that came to me about that, is that a marker, you're making marks on this board, but also, again, maybe as a play on words, is something being marked out, being set apart, essentially. So, like being a marked man, somebody that's been fingered in some way, and is set apart. And I wonder if there's something in for the dreamer in that feels that they're set apart in some way. Now, the other thing that I found quite interesting was the whiteboard, and what the thought that came to me about that was that it was a blank slate, which means that it was a new beginning. You write your own story, so that there's something about this blank slate that the dreamer was being invited to write upon, perhaps to write a new story, write his own spirals, draw his own spirals. So there's something about that blankness, and writing on it, that may be significant to the dreamer. The other thing, a crazy thought that, well, or maybe not so crazy, but it popped into my head, was that the teacher handing the dreamer this marker to write on the whiteboard, or to draw. He was actually told to draw, I said. And for the reason, the festa mind, and about drawing, like drawing a gun, which kind of goes back to the kind of fighting that I've referred to earlier when I began. So there, being a quick draw, or drawing conclusions, or so there's something about drawing in there that may be significant for the dreamer to look at. But like I said, it's what seems like a random thought for me. I may have picked up something that even I'm not quite sure what it means, but it may be of significance to the dreamer. So that's the first dream. A look at the second dream is interesting. It features a party, a rave of some kind, and the dreamer and a small group of friends had hired a space to have this party. But when they get to the space or start to get close to where the venue is, the only person who actually knows where it is the dreamer. So if the dreamer wasn't there, I guess essentially nobody would end up at this party. So they get to the venue, and then there was a bit of a not dispute or discussion at the door, because the dreamer had depended on a colleague to have the contract or the hire agreement for the space, and he lost it. Now, so there was a worry on the dreamer's part that they wouldn't be able to get in and have this party because the colleague had lost the paperwork. But nevertheless, something may or may not have been resolved, because the next thing the next image that comes through is that the dreamer is actually at the beginning of this party and in a space called the Latin room. And there the dream ends. Now, this basement, this lower level, kind of implies that there's a descent of some kind, not just a descent into a physical space and then in, but psychologically it could represent the dreamer himself and going down and inside himself to look at, or maybe have a party. You never know. But the thing about it is that there's something that implies that there's a going inward, a going downward, and the going up and down in dreams can be significant in a negative or positive sense, depending on where they were going up or down to. So there's something for the dreamer to look at. It's like, what does this descent into this basement space represent to the dreamer? Is it a representation of his inner life, or was it a representative of something that happened in his outer life, an actual space that was entered into? Not sure. Something for him to look at, perhaps. And then there was this dispute about, can we get in? Are we not getting in? In, out, in, out. And though they end up at the party, you don't really know how it was resolved. Was the contract found? Was an agreement made even though the contract was lost? What exactly happened? There's like this, it's like Nixon's, a gap in the Watergate tapes. It's like, what happened during that gap? Who said what? So I'm curious about what happened during that time that they were disputing about getting in the door and then actually being in the party. And then there is the room itself that they're in, the Latin room. Were there other rooms and you just happened to designate the room that you happened to be in was the Latin room, so implying that there were other rooms with other names? Why was the Latin room kind of distinguished from other rooms? And what does Latin evoke for the dreamer? I came up with at least two references. One, an obvious musical reference, and even within the realm of Latin music, you have salsa, you have merengue, you have bolero, you have samba, you have all kinds of music. So what does Latin evoke for the dreamer in that context? There's also a linguistic reference with regard to Latin. Latin is an ancient, archaic, dead language, a classical language that no one speaks anymore. And I wonder if there's something for the dreamer about it being speaking a language perhaps that other people don't speak, or having knowledge that other people don't have. And that kind of goes back to the judo teacher pulling the dreamer aside and teaching something just to the dreamer, as opposed as like it's specialized knowledge or secret knowledge or knowledge that only the dreamer has. And the same thing with the going to the party. The only one who knows is the dreamer. And I wonder if that's perhaps an indication to the dreamer that though that depending on other people to tell him about something, that he needs to rely on his inner wisdom, perhaps. Not to depend on the colleague to lose the paperwork, and not necessarily have to depend on the teacher to give him information about how to draw spirals. I mean, it seems like an elementary thing, but there must be something to those spirals. So I would suggest that perhaps it's the spirals and what they mean to the dreamer may help further unlock the meaning of these two dreams, because they were dreamt together. And usually when dreams are dreamt in close proximity to each other, they have a relationship of some kind. But the only relationship that I've been able to determine is that of hidden or secret knowledge the dreamer has, that knowledge that isn't being shared with other people, or knowledge that he has that that others are unaware of. So there's something about that as well. Maybe some esoteric knowledge going on there. Anyway, this is my second attempt at this. I hope this time it actually goes through. But it must always be remembered that dreams, even when they're very short or seemingly lasting only seconds, can have really, really dense and rich meanings. But you have to know how to crack the codes. Now, one thing I will, before I sign off, say to you is that a lot of people are having disturbed sleep these days since lockdown. A lot of people are having seemingly crazy off-the-wall dreams. And some of those dreams may very well just be what I call smokestack dreams rather, where people are throwing off the stress that they're not able to process during the waking hours. And it can come out of their dreams. However, if you're not sleeping well, you're probably either you're having nightmares or you're not dreaming at all. Because though sleeping, your best sleep and your dreams take place at the deepest levels of sleep. So if you're not getting sufficient sleep or not sleeping at all, you're not getting good sleep, and B, you're not going to be able to dream either. But if you're not sleeping, as I have a sleep blend, a flower essence blend that I've created for my own flower essence range called Sleep Easy, as you can see on the bottom of the screen there. If you'd like to find out how you can get a hold of some, contact me. You can book a free session, and as a thank you, you can have a bottle of this Sleep Easy. And find out how you can get that. Just contact me at www.meetingwithsheila.com. So that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a fantastic evening and a wonderful rest of the week. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.